Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the kitchen. Today, we're going to be cooking up some more reasons why Democrats lost the election so badly. So, today, we're going to be reacting to a video by a content creator called Gothics. They were a heavy far leftist at some point and kind of shifted due to the whole Little Mermaid incident. And I want to talk a little bit about this because I say people, but Democrats still seem to be extremely confused as to how so many people ended up turning on them, and because their field of view is so small, and they don't ever look at the big picture. They miss stuff like this all the time. This is a shining example of how easily they pushed people away, and how they took somebody who was not just like maybe left leaning or kind of on their side, but like full on 100% with them and just completely push them away. So let's take a look at this real quick so we can get a little more insight into how we got here.
My online handle is Gothics. I'm a content creator. I initially started making content just streaming video games on Twitch. It was not very political at all. And now most of the things that I talk about on YouTube are political in nature, relating to culture and things like that. But it wasn't by choice. I sort of got pushed into that field as a result of me waking up politically. I never really was into politics at all, but I had a lot of opinions about politics. To give you some context, I had severe Trump derangement syndrome. I hated Trump. I hated everyone who voted for Trump. I actually cut off one of my best friends. I didn't speak to her for like a year because I could not understand how my white friend would vote for someone who was against my people.
Which is a very interesting concept, right? Because Donald Trump has been in the public sphere for a long time, and he is extremely prominent in black media. You can see him everywhere. Rappers were rapping about him. Big leaders within the black community were talking about him. You've seen all of his charity efforts and him shaking hands with very prominent black activists and stuff like that. All throughout history, Trump has been very prominent within the black community and just, the community in general, like America. He's left his mark on America and has been pretty much known to be a pretty decent dude throughout his entire career. And suddenly, he's running for president and is the worst human being to ever grace this earth, the evilest man to ever exist. How did this happen? I don't understand it.
Being black people. And so, my political awakening pretty much happened over the course of maybe like 2 years. It started during when Disney announced that they were going to be doing a live-action remake of The Little Mermaid. I was wondering, why are they making Ariel black? I was very confused by this. So naturally, I go online, I ask this question, and I started to get a lot of pushback from people who were my fans. A lot of them were black fans, and they were like, they couldn't understand why I had such a problematic anti-black opinion.
Now, see, once again, this was another situation where you took a otherwise maybe not so politically leaning person and push them into a political position and eventually push them into the opposition, because there were a ton of people after iteration and iteration and iteration of all these movies where suddenly all these white characters need to become black all of a sudden, and people started really asking the question as to why. Like, why is this happening? And obviously there was a bunch of disingenuous people on the other side asking questions like, well, why do you care? It doesn't matter what color the skin is. And I'm like, okay, but that statement alone furthers my questioning, because if your argument is it doesn't matter what color the skin is, then why go through so much effort to emphasize the fact that her skin is different? Why even do it? You're saying it doesn't matter, and then you're coming at me asking me why I care so much, because that was a big deflection. It's kind of weird that you care so much. I'm like, you're literally celebrating it. You're talking about this is a milestone. This is a beautiful thing. It's amazing. All little girls around the world will rejoice. This is an incredible thing. It's so important. But why do I care about it so much when I'm simply just asking why? Doesn't make any sense. It's never made any sense. And anybody with common sense would look at it and be like, this is a little weird. Like, I don't get it. You just turn her skin black and now all of a sudden representation? Like, is that how it works? Because I've always looked at this as they were just too lazy to give you an actual character. The way turning white characters black, in my opinion, has been for me is there's a people who had a thing that they utilized and They enjoyed for a long time, and they're like, okay, we're done with this now. You can have our leftovers, because we could craft a new character with a brand new story that has unique traits about them and that's specific to them and that actually celebrates your culture and stuff. Like, we could do that. But no, you can just have this hand me down because you don't deserve an actual character. You don't deserve actual effort, and you're gonna be happy with it because we trained you to be happy about it. And that's kind of how that went for me. I felt it was disrespectful because I don't feel like you need to erase white characters in order to bring up black ones. That's never been the case. And if you look all throughout history, when it comes to video games, media, and just like nerd culture and stuff like that, it's never been necessary to do that. It's never been necessary to do that. It's only when this became mainstream and all these grifters and losers and assholes, all these people who picked on people who enjoyed these mediums before, now suddenly jumping on the bandwagon because things are mainstream now. It wasn't until they showed up that all of a sudden these heavy pushes for inclusion and all this extra bullshit was set up, when this has always been an inclusive space, always. So it's really weird that we even had to be having this conversation in the first place. And it was a valid question for people to ask. Why are you turning this character black when you can just make another character? It doesn't make any sense.
And that sort of stuck with me right here, because I'm like, my audience just turned on me for a very reasonable question. And I also didn't like how if anyone opposed Ariel being turned black, you were automatically a racist. And that doesn't make any sense to me.
That's another huge point. Once again, the leftist way to deal with anybody who disagrees with them is slap a label on them, completely dismiss them. It's not a good strategy. You're not going to get people to side with you if you're just like, hey, agree with me on this thing. And they're like, nah, I'd rather discuss it. Let's talk about it and see if... No. We don't get to talk about it. We don't get to discuss it. I don't care what your opinions are. You agree with me or you're a racist and fuck you. And that's it. That the conversation ends there. I will cut you out of my life. I'll never talk to you again. You're a piece of garbage. And that's it. That's where this ends. Mind you, once again, this is the party of joy and togetherness and bringing people together. They don't like division. They're not divisive at all. It's those other guys that are divisive. By the way, if you don't agree with me, fuck you and everybody who agrees with you, and I'll kick you out of my life. We'll kick you out of everything. We'll try to get you fired. We'll try to destroy your life. We're the good guys, by the way. We are the good ones. It doesn't make sense.
So a few months later, COVID starts, and we're told to stay home and flatten the curve. Meanwhile, the BLM protest starts, and now all of a sudden, you can go out as long as you are protesting to end racial injustice or something like that. So that hypocrisy didn't make any sense to me.
That was another huge one. That pissed a lot of people off. Remember, now you have to remember, there's a certain level of scale that people are just ignoring and pretending didn't exist. People were literally saying to any conservatives or anybody who was right that if you don't get the vaccine, if you're not staying in the house, if you're not listening to protocol and doing all this stuff, you are a murderer, you are a Nazi killer, and you are responsible for literally killing these people with your bare hands. They were saying you're a monster, how dare you have no empathy, you guys are demons, evil, all that stuff. This is what was coming out of their mouths. But as soon as those BLM protests happened, all of a sudden these people were flooding the streets, and it was perfectly fine for them to just be out there. During COVID, this was during COVID, when these exact same people were saying that you can't go to church, you can't go to hospitals to check on your families, you can't do anything. Going outside for any reason makes you scum. You are a complete scum of the earth. But if you want to protest for Black Lives Matter, then it's fine. It's different now because the rules don't apply to us. If you do this, you're garbage and you're evil, but if we do it, then it's fine. And people don't forget this stuff. People don't forget. Like, it's not like people forgot about this. Now, there was a bunch of people on the left pretending this wasn't happening. They were just pretending it wasn't real. They saw it happening, they went to the rallies themselves, and then after they went home, they got on the computer to go yell at more right-wing people for complaining about not being able to go out. They literally just pretended it wasn't real. And while they were pretending that all these things that kept compiling up over the years and years, and once again, like I said, if you tell yourself that something is real enough, you'll eventually believe it, and they just believed that none of this stuff ever happened. But we didn't forget. We did not forget and people voted accordingly.
Either COVID is deadly or it's not. Either we stay home or we don't. We don't get to pick and choose. And once again, I brought up the question, what does stealing a 70-inch TV have to do with ending police brutality? And once again, I got hate. And then it dawned on me, hold on, I keep getting pushback from black leftists. There is something going on about this. So then I started going down a rabbit hole and I started literally researching black people who stopped being Democrat. And the amount of stuff that I got, it was crazy. The first thing that I watched was the Uncle Tom documentary. And what I came to realize after watching that is that we have been lied to about history. People love to go on and on about we need to teach the proper history. No, we're being taught selective history. And I don't know if I can speak for all the blacks on this stage, but maybe people can relate to, if you are black, there's something called the black card. And there's sort of like this expectation that you're supposed to behave in a certain way, and that trickles down all the way to who you vote for. And
Exactly. That, and once again, that is something that is ingrained in the culture. It is this kind of dogmatic kind of follow this type of behavioral path and do these things in order to be recognized as a proper black person. Once again, coming from the same party that wants to fight against racism, who wants to fight against stereotypes, who wants to get rid of all that stuff, it is being maintained by them. Similar to the feminist movement, who say they want to fight injustice against women, they want to fight against women not having the choice to choose, but they are literally maintaining the foundation that's kept that ideology alive for a long time. Who are at the forefront of making sure that women stay in line and behave a certain way? It's women. When it comes to black people, who are at the forefront of carrying the mantle of these stereotypes and making sure that black people stay in line and behave the way black people are supposed to be behaving? It's black people. It's not white people, it's black people. And they do it all the time unconsciously because that's how they were trained. They were trained to do that, and they just do it instinctively. And they do it so well that they don't even know that they're doing it. The training was so perfect that they have no idea that they're doing it. In the same breath, they will denounce people being put inside of a box. They will denounce generalization. They will denounce stereotypes. And then immediately the next line out of their mouth will reinforce it. And they just won't even know. They can't even see the irony. And even if you point it out to them, they'll claim that you're playing some kind of mind trick on them, or you're trying to trick them into hating their own people, or they'll just default to you just hate your own people if you're black and you're trying to point that out to them. Anything to deflect from the fact that they are literally holding up. They are literally the foundation holding up the oppression that they claim to suffer from. It's ridiculous.
So when you are born black in America, it's sort of insinuated that you will be voting Democrat. Don't ask questions, just vote Democrat, which is exactly what I did when Obama was running. I voted for him because he's black. Knew nothing about his policies, but he's black and I need to help my people or something like that. So yeah, and that process got me to start really considering all the things that I used to believe. One of the things was about Trump, and then I realized that, oh wow, the media is lying about him. They're taking these clips and they're using clickbait and distorting it, taking it totally out of context, and they're emotionally extorting people who wear their identity on their sleeve.
Exactly. Emotional extortion of people who wear their identity on their sleeve, because it's the only metric that they have to go by. It's the only thing that they have. And when you have this kind of bias, you are willing to believe literally anything as long as it confirms it, because that's your worldview and you can't see beyond it. And that's how they want it. That was the programming. That was the training. They wanted you to be like that. And a lot of people are, unfortunately. They don't care about facts. They don't care what reality says. They care about the reality that they were given, that they were born with, that they were tasked with holding up. And that's it. It doesn't matter. And some people break out of it. Some people, like her, they'll see and realize what's going on and they'll start asking questions and maybe do something about it. But other people, they are way too scared to even question it, because it would take a massive level of self-reflection and looking back at yourself and saying, oh my God, I have literally been wrong about everything. And people, that's really hard for people to do. It's really, really, really difficult for people to do. They don't want to have to do that. So they're like, look, in order to feel like my worldview has been correct, in order to make sure that the training that I got to make sure that I behave like a proper black person stays in place, I will believe anything as long as it confirms that bias. That's it. I don't need evidence. You can show me as much evidence as you want. I'll find some way around it. I'll find some way to dismiss it. I have to, because it is more important that I stay a good black person and behave like my masters trained me to do, instead of, I don't know, accepting reality.
If you are black and you see a video of some guy in office talking about anything racist, of course you're going to oppose him, right? And then that makes room for a political savior to come in who makes empty promises about ending white supremacy. I just came to realize that the media is not on our side. They're not there to tell us the news. They're not there to keep us informed. They're there to get us emotionally riled up so then they can use that to get us marching to the ballot box. They don't actually care about us. And that's pretty much my walkaway story.
Yeah, and that is true. That is the cold, hard truth. And I want to add that this is not just about Democrats. This is how most politicians think. They don't really care about what you really believe in, or whether or not you're getting the proper information or anything like that. Most of them, I'm not going to say all, most of them just want your vote. And they're going to do whatever it takes to get it. That's just the way it is. So if you've been confused, if you've been a little puzzled as to how we got here, like I said, everybody wants to point to a thing, like a specific event, a specific turning point, a specific moment in history where everything just kind of clicked. That's not the case. If you're thinking about it that way, you're thinking about it wrong. This has been a death of 1,000 cuts, a thing that's been taking place for years and years and years, and it's just been kind of building up and building up, and eventually the balloon was gonna burst. Like it was eventually gonna happen, and this is what happened. The Democrats have lost everything. Every single possible position of power within our government system, they have pretty much just lost universally. And like I said, this was building up for years, and instead of doing what they should have done, reaching out to the voters and talking to everybody and figuring out what they wanted, like the right did, because that's what they did. All these videos you see of right-wing influencers going out to these college campuses and challenging these kids' worldview, talking to them directly and figuring out what's going on, and then you have these kids at these college campuses saying, you guys are fascists because you want to come out here and speak to us and have a legitimate conversation, which is the most idiotic thing I think I've ever heard in my life. You person who are coming out here to speak to me, to actively hear my opinion and have a discussion so that way we can talk about our differences, you are a fascist because you want to discuss opposing views with me. It's like the most ass backwards thing I've ever seen. Look at these Nazis. They're coming to our school and holding conversations with us. They're listening to our point of views and actively challenging them. That's real Nazi behavior, right? Totally not. That's what the Nazis did back in the day. They just pulled a bunch of the Jews together and just decided, let's have friendly discussions about our differences. That's what Nazism was. And that's what it is to these people. It is anybody who does not see your opinion. That's it. That's what a modern day Nazi is. It is somebody who does not see your opinion. And they are the root of all evil, the most evil people to ever exist, because they want to have a conversation, because they want to challenge your worldview, because they want to talk to you and figure out where your brain is. So who do you think was more likely to win? The group of people who saw the dissent, who saw people were having issues and struggling, trying to figure out how to navigate this political world. So they went out, reached out to them and said, let's talk. You and me, let's have a conversation and figure out what our differences are. Or is it the group of people that said, no, you agree with me or else. Agree with our opinions or you're a racist, you're a sexist, we're going to get you fired, we're going to make sure you lose your job, we're going to exclude you from society itself, and we're going to destroy your lives if you don't agree with us. Which side do you think would have been more appealing? And it's so stupid that I have to sit here and try to explain this to people. I feel so dumb that I have to explain this to grown adults. People are actually baffled at the idea that people chose the group of people that reached out to them and wanted to actually talk to them and listen to them. They can't believe it. Like, how could they choose them over us? It doesn't make any sense to me. But like I said, and this is just one example. This is just one example of thousands and thousands of different reasons why people got pushed over to the right. And like I said, right now the Dems, their only explanation is, oh, just half of America is just racist and sexist. That's it. That's the only explanation. And they will not accept anything else. Period. That's it. We can't talk about it. We can't discuss it. You're a sexist or you're a racist, and that's it. And that's how they expect to get votes. That's how they expect to win upcoming elections from this point on. Just shame people until voting for them. It's not gonna work anymore. Sorry guys, that era is over with. Try something else. So yeah, I just wanted to cover this a little bit. There's tons of more examples that we can cover and that we will be covering in the future to further drive the point home, because I really want to have Democrats understand where they went wrong with this election. And so we're going to keep talking about this stuff. And if you have other examples, bring them up to me. We'll talk about those too. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget, if you cannot stand the heat, stay the fuck out of the kitchen.